Hello, welcome to Spokane, Washington, the jewel of the Northwest. My name is John Walker. I've been with Woodcraft here at this store since 2014, and we're here today to talk about rasps and files. What do rasps and files do? They remove material, whether it's from metal or from wood or plastic or whatever, what have you. The appropriate file or rasp is for removing material. Whether it's a lot of material with a rasp or sharpening and using smoothing metal or wood with a file. So that's what we're going to talk about today. They're even used for hooves. There are special files and rasps for shaping hooves on horses. Rasps are bars of steel that are not hardened, and they're sent through either a machine like this one or made by hand, like this one that we sell here at Woodcraft. And you can see with the machine stitched, that's what the term is, with the machine stitched rasp, there's nice even lines. And even though the teeth are offset a bit, it's going to cut well, but it's going to be a rougher cut than the hand stitched. So I don't know if the audience can see that through the plastic, but I think this is a machine stitched rasp that is where the machine can actually duplicate the non-pattern of a hand stitched rasp. The person who would stitch or raise the teeth on these rasps would just sit there with a little chisel and bring up each tooth. And because it's a person, and because they can, even though they may be going across in what they think is straight lines, it's not going to be perfect, and that's the whole idea. This rasp will make a much smoother cut than this rasp, simply because you're going to get the lines on the machine stitch rasp. So it's for removing material. And as we can see over here at my block of wood, this rasp is flat on one side and curved on the other. Really good for getting your initial shaping for, say, furniture making. But it's simply, the cutting direction is away from you, whether it's on the flat side or not. So you can see, you may be able to see the lines in that. You can also come over here and cut your curves for furniture making or whatever shaping you need to do on a softer surface. You would not use rasps on metal. The steel is not hardened. You can't sharpen them. If you use them on metal, they are not going to last very long, and they're not going to do the job that you want. They're for wood or softer materials like metal or plastic, or wood or plastic, or maybe resins or something like that. This is a type of file that is called a Shinto style rasp, and it comes from Japan, and it's basically hacksaw blades that are formed in a line, but they go back and forth in a pattern that makes a diamond pattern, and there is a rough cutting surface on one side and a fine cutting surface on the other side. Some people really like these. I don't have one personally, but some people swear by them. This is a new product, relatively new product to Woodcraft, and it's the same design as some of the burrs that the rotary carvers use. And this is a flat file. There are also the round and half round and square and different shape files on this. And this would be a coarse. This is a coarse. This gold color is the fine. And will they load up? Yes, but you can clean them out with a wire brush. This is a three-piece rasp set that is sold here at Wood River, fine, and then a round file, or a round rasp, and a half-round rasp for shaping wood. This here is basically kind of like a cheese grater. And surprisingly enough, it gives a fairly smooth surface. I've had this one in my toolbox for a number of years. And now, can you sharpen a rasp? Well, I can't see it happening. Number one, it's soft steel. It has not been hardened. And the little teeth are just too small to make it practical. Can you make them cut better? Can you make an older rasp cut better? Sure you can. You can get the debris out from in front of the teeth to allow them to make the cut. And you would do that with a wire brush. And even that, there's a bit of debris here that doesn't want to come out. And you might have to chip it out. There we go. See all that? People will dip them in different types of acids to clear the debris, and then neutralize the acid with baking soda solution. But you can't sharpen a rasp. You can just clean it and make it cut better. Same thing with a file. So now we're past the rasps and into the files. So there are a whole bunch of different shapes to the files that are available. First thing we're going to talk about is the cut. So this file here, has even the name on it. It's a mill bastard file. It's a single cut file, and as opposed to so the teeth run all the way across the surface and on the sides all the way across. So this is machine stamped. So there's a machine that can stamp this file with these teeth, and the cutting, again, you're going to cut away from you with this file, and because it is a single cut file, it's going to have a tendency to drift in one direction. But it would not be classified as a fine file just simply because of the single cut feature, a fine cut file. So I have another single cut small file. difference a lot of times in the coarseness of the file is just in the length. So you can pretty much be assured that a 10 or 12 or 14-inch file that is, say, a bastard cut is going to be more coarse than a bastard cut 6-inch file. It's just the way they've marketed them. So then you get to the double cut files. This is a half round. This is one of mine. And here's the flat side. And so they start with the cuts with the automated chisels going up at an angle like that. And then they come back and do a second cut, creating little diamond shape cutting surfaces. So this is going to give a smoother cut than the bastard cuts. Here is a larger, more coarse double cut file, and it has on the edges it just has the single teeth going from side to side. There's no double cut on that. It's kind of like a large saw blade on the edges, and it's the same surface. This one's made by Diston. I don't know how old it is. I don't even know where I got it. I think the only one that I purchased here, other than inheriting them from my stepdad's father or whatever, is this mill bastard file. And you can see it's fairly thin, but that's that single cut again. Now, as far as handles, you can see that this is the tang of the file. This is what goes inside a wooden handle. You just tap it in. And so this is the tang. You can use it with or without the tang, but depending on what you're doing or how long you're doing it, it could get uncomfortable. So this one here, this is made by Heller in the U.S. I don't know how old this one. It is a double cut file, pretty fine, and it comes with a handle engineered into the body of the file. Now these are curved tooth files, and they're for relatively rough work. And there is a style of file called a float that has the teeth straight across, and those are used, I believe, in horseshoeing as well. These are kind of handy because as you go along with your cut, the debris that gets in the center of the cut is forced out to the sides, so it's almost a little bit self-clearing. I have a couple of these. I don't know what brand this one is. And so for the next type of file or rasp, we have it's called a 4-in-hand. And what it has, if somebody wants to, it has an economic issue and wants a tool that is cheap and effective and is going to last a while, the 4-in-hand is really handy. It has a coarse rasp, a curved rasp, and then for your initial shaping. And on the other end, it has a curved file for the smoothing aspect of it. On that backside, you have a flat rasp. It looks kind of sort of like hand-stitched, but it's done by machine. I don't know how they figure to do the random pokes there, but they do. And then you have a double-cut flat smoothing surface here. So that's a 4-in-1. Really handy for someone who wants to buy their first file and don't want to spend a lot of money. And then there's square files and triangular files and round files. So here we have some triangular files that have found their way into my toolbox, and they are generally used for smoothing and shaping wood and metal, and because they are hardened, and they can be used for sharpening hand saws. So I have 3 different sizes of triangular files here, and then we have a small circular file that is tapered, and it's kind of a rat tail version of the rat tail rasp. And they call it a rat tail because it gets smaller at the end. And there are round files that are cylindrical from end to end with the same dimensions, and that's this one here. That is a round file it doesn't taper, and this might be used for, or this style might be used for sharpening a chainsaw blade, because the saw blade gets a straight section of the blade sharpened. The chainsaw blade has a curved part on the inside that gets sharpened. So that would be probably what that one would be used for. And then we have another couple of rasps that are more used this one is a file. They're more used with the hand carving people. And so we have a safe side with no teeth on one, so you can use it to smooth and carve wood with the curve there. And we have a fine cut here, a little bit more coarse here, with a safe side on the back side of each cut. And this one is almost like a 4-in-hand for carving. It's called a sculptor's rasp, although it has a file on the inside, a double cut file pattern on the inside. On this end, on the outside is a double cut file pattern as well. On this end, you have a hand-stitched machine type pattern on the outside and the inside. So that's that. There, we also sell a set of cylindrical files, and these are single cut. They just go, it looks like they're not straight across, but they curl up to the end. And it's a file, so it's hardened steel, and I'm not entirely sure whether you would use them for sharpening or for carving. So, maintenance of your files. We'd already talked about the idea that you really can't sharpen a file unless you heat it up, soften the metal, and then somehow get a tool in those little tiny grooves there to resharpen them. And then once you've resharpened the teeth, then you would have to reheat it and recool it to harden the steel again. Not sure that's a reasonable occupation, I think, especially with the real fine files. So what can you do? Well, on a file like this, you can simply use a wire brush and follow the pattern of the teeth and get some of the debris out. With a double cut file, little bit more complicated. So you have your lines of teeth going this way, and then the initial cut is going this way. So you don't want to go straight up and down like this, because that's going to not do your teeth any favors. You start in the one direction and work on it in that direction, and then you come back and go in the other direction to clean out those teeth. Like I discussed before, the technique of, I guess you'd almost call it refreshing a file by putting it in acid and letting it soak for a while and then taking it out and neutralizing that acid. That refreshes a file. It really doesn't sharpen a file. It just removes debris that's in between the grooves that allow the teeth to bite more deeply like it bit when it was new. So now I've always wondered about this name, the bastard file. Can't imagine. I did some Googling on this subject just to pass on for a point of interest. And there's a couple different theories out there. Number one is that it's the expletive that you use when you abrade a finger on a rough file or a rasp. Number two, it's a conversion of a French word, and I can't really speak intelligently on that subject, but that was one theory. And then the most entertaining theory is about the Duke of Northumberland back in the 15th century, 16th century. And he was not a pleasant man. And he had the tenant farmers. And when they didn't bring in the amount of crops that he expected, he would torture them and torture their wives. So he got this reputation throughout England for being, well, in simple terms, he was a bastard, although not technically. And so the King of England got back from overseas on one of his escapades with his armies, and he wanted to get his nobles, the nobility, back under control. Apparently he got the word that there was some really bad things going on. So he requested that this Duke of Northumberland come and report to him at his castle in, I assume that it would have been London. And he publicly ridiculed this Duke for his behavior, and he used a file to file off the end of his nose. So that one story, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but it's the most entertaining of the three stories. And so that file was known as a bastard file. So I hope I have enlightened at least a few people on some things that they possibly didn't know on Files and Rasps. And thank you very much. We'll see you soon.